Hello everybody, it's Mel. Thank you for joining me today for the overly, underly, and appropriately hyped book tag. So I'm not sure if that intro made a lot of sense, but I've seen this going around on Instagram and I thought it would be a fun video to make. Don't know that it's technically a tag, but I've called it a tag, so if you want to do this video or this tag, then feel free to do so and say that you were tagged by me. I'm not going to tag anyone because it's not technically necessarily a tag, but nonetheless, it is a trend that I've seen on Instagram that I thought would be a fun video to make. So the idea behind this video is that you talk about a few different books that you think were underhyped, so books that have not been talked about, have not been hyped up as much as you think they deserve. Appropriately hyped, so books that have been appropriately hyped, have been hyped up and talked about as much as you think they deserve. And then books that you think are overhyped, books that have been hyped up, talked about too much, that more than they deserve. Now, when I say deserve, I mean deserve because of being really well written or being really interesting or fun in the person's opinion. So these are all my opinions. If you like some of the books that I think were overhyped, then I apologize if it offends you that I think they were overhyped. It's just my opinion. Like I said, this is just intended to be a little bit of fun, but if you're going to be offended by opinions that maybe aren't your own and that me saying that books aren't as good as you think they are, then maybe don't watch this video. Anyhow, with that disclaimer out of the way, I am going to talk about 5 books for each category. So 5 books that I think are underhyped, 5 books that I think are appropriately hyped, and 5 books that I think are overhyped. I will not go into detail about what these books are about, but I will let you know why I think that. So, first we're going to do underhyped. These are 5 books that I think need more hype, that have not been shared in the booktube community and on Instagram as much as they deserve, because I personally think they're well written, they're interesting, and generally a great story. I had a great time with them. So I think they deserve more hype and more people reading them and more people talking about them. The first of these is Opium and Absinthe by Lydia Kang. This book appears on its surface to be a fantasy to do with vampires, but it's actually historical fiction with a murder mystery, and I think it was really well written. I really enjoyed the characters, and yeah, definitely underhyped in my opinion. I have not heard anyone, I don't think, talk about this book. I'm not 100% sure when this was published. I'm not 100% sure when any of these were published. Some of these were published a while ago, so maybe they got a little bit of hype when they first came out, but they certainly have not continued to have the hype of some books that just constantly are hyped. This one I don't think was particularly hyped when it first came out, and it's a shame because I think it's fantastic and more people should read it. Next up in my underhyped is A Shala Wolf. So this is actually called the I can't remember what it's actually called. There's something of A Shala Wolf by Amberlynn Quamelina. This is the first book in a trilogy, which I really enjoyed. It is a sci-fi fantasy mix, I would say. Young adult, written by an Australian Indigenous author and written in an alternative future Australia. Like I said, I think it's fantastic. I think it's really well written. I thoroughly enjoyed this series, and I definitely think that more people should read it, but I don't see people talking about it, and I do think that it deserves more hype. I think it's incredibly well written. I love Amberlynn Quamelina's writing style, and yeah, highly recommend. Definitely underhyped. Then I have The Killing Code by Ellie Marnie. This is another Australian author. It is a murder mystery set in historical America during the Second World War, and the characters are spy breakers. I think it's really interesting. I think it's really well written. I love Ellie Marnie's writing style. The historical setting and the way that that's done is really well, and the characters are great, so highly recommend. Definitely not hyped enough, particularly if you like thrillers. I think that you'd really enjoy this book, and yeah, like I said, criminally underrated. Thoroughly enjoyed this book. One of my favourite mystery thrillers that I've ever read, and I highly recommend. Next up is The Hymn to Dionysus by Natasha Pulley. This is a retelling of the myth of Dionysus, which is a Greek myth. I absolutely loved it. My favourite book of last year. I thought it was absolutely fantastic. Like I said, it is a retelling of the Dionysus, the various different myths surrounding Dionysus, and just fantastic. I love the writing style. I thought it was absolutely fantastically written. Great characters. Highly, highly recommend. Criminally, again, like I said already, criminally underrated. Absolutely fantastic. More people need to read it and rave about it. Just talk about it all the time because it's fantastic. And then my final book that is underhyped is also criminally underhyped, and I think that's such a shame because not only is this book fantastic, it was written by one of our own. It was written by a booktuber, and that book is The Lady of the Lake by Jean Menzies. I've talked about this book quite a number of times now since I read it last year. It was in my top 10 favourite books of the year. And yeah, I've talked about it quite a bit. I think it's incredibly underrated. I think everyone should read it, not only because it was written by a booktuber, but I think that it's fantastic. It's a great retelling. It is an Arthurian legend retelling, and it's just really, really well written. I love the characters. I love the romance. I love the evocative way that it was written. I think that Jean has a fantastic writing style, and yeah, highly recommend. Please go and read it. Please go and read all of these books. I think they're amazing. Okay, now we have appropriately hyped. So these are books that are hyped as much as I think they deserve, because all of them are books that I have thoroughly enjoyed, that I think are fantastic, that I think that deserve the hype that they've received, but I think they have received the appropriate level of hype. Those books are, first of all, The Spell Shop by Sarah Beth Durst. This is a cozy fantasy with a little bit of romance. It is really well written. It is whimsical. It is written with a really nice, sense of whimsy, a really nice storyline. It's incredibly easy to read. It has great characters. It has a really lush setting, really great world building. Definitely highly recommend, and I think that it is appropriately hyped. I've heard lots of people talk about it, and to good reason. It's amazing. Next up is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. This is another cozy fantasy, and I think that it is, so I wouldn't say it was the first of its nature, the first of its kind, but I think that it is the book that kind of really brought cozy fantasy into the forefront of readers' minds and made it a really, really popular genre these days. It is a, like I said, cozy fantasy, and it is kind of like, instead of about a campaign, it is kind of after the campaign. By campaign, I mean like a D&D campaign. It reads very much like an after the D&D campaign, once the campaigner has finished, but it's just really well written. It's a really simple storyline, a really simple plot, but I think really, really well done with fantastic characters and really great vibes. It's a very much a vibe book, and it's fantastically written. Highly recommend. Think that it's definitely worth the hype that it was given and continues to be given. Next up is Murderbot by Martha Wells. So this is a series. There are quite a number of novellas in this series. I've only read the first two, but I highly recommend. It's actually been made into a TV series as well, which I highly recommend also. I think it's fantastic, and it's just really, really fun. I would call this probably a cozy sci-fi. It follows a sentient AI who is a security unit robot, but they have hacked their governor module, so they're actually in control of their own mind. And yeah, it's just a really great character. It's a really great storyline. It's kind of more of an exploration of humanity and our mindsets and the way that we think. And I think it's really, really well done. I think it's really, really interesting and definitely worth the hype. I was quite unsure about it because science fiction isn't necessarily my main, certainly reading genre, but I'd heard fantastic things about it from all sorts of different people. And my parents gave this to me for my birthday, and I'm really glad they did because I thought it was fantastic, and I really, really recommend and definitely think it was worth the hype. Next up is Babel, which is one of my favourite books of all time so far. It is very much a kind of a genre blend. So it's got elements of dark academia, it's got elements of, so what I'm looking for, it's got elements of fantasy, it's got elements of suburban fantasy. That's not the concept I'm looking for. Anyway, it's a fantastical our world with magic, but in a dark academia setting. It is incredibly well written. It is a great look at colonialism, at oppression of different people, at aspects of slavery, and I just think it's fantastic. Plus it's really well written, great characters. It was very hyped up when it first came out, and it still continues to be well loved and well read, so definitely worth the hype. Highly recommend. And then the final book that I think was very much appropriately hyped, worth all of the hype it received, is The Flat Share by Beth O'Leary. This was published a few years ago now. When I first started booktube, I was hearing a lot about it. I haven't heard much about it recently, but like I said, it was published quite a few years ago now, but it did receive a lot of hype in that first period after it was published, and I think that there's a good reason for that. I think it's fantastic. This is sheltered romance, but I think that you could call it more of a kind of contemporary slash romance. It follows two characters who end up living together, but it's a very unorthodox living situation because they never meet, and they share even though they share a bed, because Tiffy works during the day, so he's in the flat at night, and Leon works at night, so he's in the flat during the day. I think it's really, really well written. I think there's a lot more to it, and it looks at gaslighting and at trauma and at abuse within a relationship, but really, really well done. It's really with a really light hand. So yeah, it's just really, really well written. A lot more deep than it may appear on the surface, but also really fun with a lot of humour. Highly recommend. Definitely think that it was well hyped. Appropriately hyped even. Okay, now we have some books that are overhyped, in my opinion. So this is the section that you may disagree with, and that's perfectly fine. This is meant as a bit of fun. It's not meant to be taken particularly seriously, and also these are my opinions. Anyway, the books I personally think are very much overhyped, so people seem to love them, they talk about them a lot, they kind of are everywhere. I don't think they are as good as all the hype that they are getting. I'm not saying they're necessarily bad, but I don't think that they're worth the hype. The first one of those is The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. This is a romantasy, which not so much in the last couple of months, but I was seeing hyped up all over the place. Anyone that reads romantasy absolutely loves this book, loves this whole series, loves Carissa Broadbent as an author. I didn't particularly enjoy it. I thought it was not particularly well written, and I thought that it was definitely longer than it needed to be, and there were it was very tropey. And I say that to mean, like, tropes are fine. Tropes are tropes for a reason, but it relied on those tropes more than necessarily storytelling, in my opinion, which was unfortunate because I was hoping to really, really enjoy it. I'm starting to realise that romantasy might not necessarily be my genre, with certain exceptions. But nonetheless, I personally think that The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent is overhyped. It is a book about vampires, it is a romantasy about vampires, and that's all I'm going to say. The next book that I think is overhyped is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. I don't feel like I need to explain what this book is about because I feel like you've heard about it because it's been so incredibly hyped up and people are loving this series. Personally, I didn't think it was particularly good. I didn't particularly enjoy it. It's romantasy as well, which, like I said, may not be my genre as it turns out. But anyway, yes, Fourth Wing I didn't think was particularly well written. I didn't particularly enjoy it. Definitely think it was overhyped. And yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. Next up is They Both Die at the End by Adam Silvera. So this is a book that everybody seems to love, and I thought was okay. There's nothing particularly wrong with it, but I don't think it was as good as everyone seems to think it was. It touched on too many things that it didn't follow through with. Hello. It is different filming from different filming day, Mel, if that makes sense. And unfortunately, the end of this video got cut off when the memory card got full, I think, or possibly, I don't know. And unfortunately, the end of the video that I filmed about 2 weeks ago now was cut off, and I didn't realise. So I have come back here today, a few weeks later, to film the very end of this video. So that is why I'm wearing a totally different outfit and everything, but we are not professional here, we are doing this for fun, so it's all good. Anyway, I was talking to you about books that I thought were overhyped. And I believe that I talked last about They Both Die at the End. I don't actually know whether I was finished talking about that one, but needless to say, I do think that book is overhyped, unfortunately. I wouldn't say it was a terrible book, but it was just kind of a middle of the road kind of book for me, which meant that it was overhyped, in my opinion, because, yeah, so many people love it. But, you know, you do you. Anyway, I've got 2 more books to talk about. The next one is Crazy Rich Asians by Kevin Kwan. I personally thought this was not very good. I don't know whether I gave it 2 stars or 3. Pretty sure I gave it 2. Certainly if I reread it, I would give it 2 because, well, I don't give 1s. I rarely give 2s, but I don't give 1s because I just tend to DNF even when I'm doing a book club or something like that, which is what I was reading this one for. If I really can't, I really can't, you know, I'm not going to read it. For the most part, anyway, I'm not going to read it. So there was enough in here that I could finish it, but it just wasn't very good. I didn't think it was particularly well written. It wasn't that fun. I don't think it was kind of more annoying than anything else. But a lot of people seem to really love it. It was made into a movie, which is usually a sign that people are vaguely interested in it. Certainly was popular in the universe, you know, in the world in general. I'm not really sure how popular it was here on booktube, but I know there are quite a few people that did really enjoy the series on booktube, so, you know. But personally, I didn't think it was particularly well written. I didn't think it was particularly really made any sense, to be honest, and yeah, I didn't really love it, so not really sure what the hype there was about. And then the final book on this list is not a book that I disliked, or even a book that I thought was badly written or anything like that. It just wasn't as good as the hype suggested that I thought it should be, if that makes sense. So that is Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. Now, like I said, this is not a bad book by any means. I thought it was quite good. I quite enjoyed it. I think I gave it 3.5 stars or something like that. 3 or 3.5 stars, I'm pretty sure. 3.5 stars means it's slightly better than a middle of the road book, so it's got quite a bit going for it. But I just didn't think it was as good as the hype suggests. Some people have said this is a favourite book of theirs overall. Certainly during the few years after, the first few years after it was published, people would talk about it as being a favourite book of theirs of that year. It just didn't work for me in the same way as it worked for other people. Like I said, I thought it was reasonably good, but it was just overhyped for me, personally. So, yeah. Anyway, that is my tag, for want of a better way of looking at it. Please don't come at me for the books that I thought were overhyped. Like I said, it's just my personal opinion. You do you. If you like them, if you thought they were amazing, that's up to you, of course. But anyway, yeah, that's everything from me today. If you have any thoughts, like I said, please be kind, but if you have any thoughts, please do comment those down below. If you'd like to leave me a comment but you don't know what, then leave me either a really happy face emoji or a really sad face emoji. But yeah, that's everything from me today. So, thank you so much for joining me. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, I would absolutely love it if you would subscribe to my channel and give this video a thumbs up. And yeah, like I said, thank you so much for joining me today. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.